Hey guys, I am Dr. Farida. So today I'm going to explain to you how you should answer your first quiz, Introduction to Food Analysis. So altogether in this quiz you have 3 different questions. I'm going to go briefly on how you should tackle all these questions. So we're going to start with question number 1. So question number 1, you should briefly explain what is the difference between the Food Act 1983 and the Food Regulation 1985. So briefly I can tell you that in the Food Act 1983, this act is actually aimed to protect public against the health hazard, fraud in the preparation, sales and also the use of food. So in this Food Act 1983, the Ministry of Health plays an important role whereby they are responsible for the implementation and enforcement of the food law in Malaysia, including the appointment of analysts, authorization of the officers, to make sure that this Food Act is being implemented accordingly. So, on the other hand, for Food Regulation 1985 is actually to cover the important importation of food to Malaysia by ensuring that the food is safe for human consumption, but this is not applicable for any food that is prepared or produced or packaged outside Malaysia. So this regulation covers 10 different things, from preliminary warranty, approval of sale of food obtained by biotechnology, procedures for taking samples, labeling, food additives, nutrient and supplement, packaging for food, and any other constituents, standards and particular labeling, and also all the requirements of the range of food product. So I expect you to explain briefly like this. So altogether you should have like 4 points if you get all the important things in your answer screen. Moving on to question number 2. Apart from Food Regulation 1985, what are other regulations prior to control the hygiene and safety of food sold in Malaysia? So briefly explain the objective of this regulation. So basically, other than the Food Regulation 1985, the regulation that is being implemented in Malaysia is the Food Hygiene Regulation 2009. So that is your first answer for this question. And the next one, you have to explain briefly the objective of this regulation. So this regulation, which is the Food Hygiene Regulation 2009, is to ensure that the food premises are hygienic and it is satisfactory in terms of design of the building, and to ensure that the food handlers maintain the personal hygiene and to avoid practices that can contaminate the food. And then this regulation is being enforced to ensure that the equipment and the appliances used in the food premises are suitable, clean and easy to be cleaned, and to facilitate, strengthen and also harmonize the enforcement of these activities of food premises, including those that is conducted by the Ministry of Health, in order to ensure that the Food Law 1983 and the Food Regulation 1985 is being complied. And this Food Hygiene Regulation 2009 is to provide the requirements of mandatory of food safety assurance programs such as HACCP or GHP or also GMP in the food factories. So all these things is actually the Food Hygiene Regulation 2009 is to protect the consumer and to help the food provider to ensure that they will fulfill those regulations which is banning on the Food Act 1983 and also the Food Regulation 1985. Moving on to the last question, question number 3. The analysis of a city drinking water for arsenic yielded values of 5.60 ppm, 5.64 ppm, 5.70 ppm, 5.69 ppm, and also 5.81 ppm. The final value appears to be anomalous. With the aid of table question 3, determine if this value should be rejected at 95% confident level. So when you have this kind of question, the first thing that you need to know which calculation that you need to do, whether you want to do the Q test or the G test. So the first thing you need to do is that you need to arrange the value from the biggest to the smallest. So here is the sample and here is the ppm. So altogether we have 5 samples, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the biggest value that you have in the question is 5.81 and the smallest is 5.60. So I'm just going to fill in the middle part is 5.70, 5.69 and 5.64. Alright, so when you have arranged this number according to the value from the biggest to the smallest, so you need to choose which one is the outlier. So from the question it states that the final values appears to be anomalous. So it means that the first value, the last value, which is the 5.81, it happens to be the biggest one, is predicted to be the outliers. So how are you going to do the Q test? So the Q test is equivalent to xq minus xn plus 1 over w, where the xq, this must be in modulus, okay, remember? So xq is your suspected outliers. So since in the question it's suspected that 5.81 is the outliers, so your xq is 5.81, and then your xn plus 1 is actually the nearest next data point. So this is your outliers. So the next one, the n plus 1, so this next one is 5.70 anomalous, okay. And then the w is actually the range. So from the largest number, which is again 5.81, minus the smallest number, which is this one, the smallest number, 5.60. So you should get your Q test. This Q test should be equivalent to 0.5238. So this is your Q test according to this calculation. So from here, what you need to do is that you need to check back on the table given in the question. See, in the question it states that determine if this value should be rejected at 95% confident level. So from this table, you go and search for 95%. And how many samples do you have? So here altogether we have 5 samples. So you need to look at 95% and the n is equivalent to 5 because you have 5 samples. So your Q critical is supposed to be 0.710, right? So this is your Q critical and this is your Q test. So since your Q test is actually smaller, right? This is 0.5, this is 0.7, then the Q critical, so therefore we need to keep the outliers. So in terms of, like for example, if you want to find the average of things, so you need to keep this value, although it's look kind of weird because it's like so far away, but for 95% confident, this is still okay. So you need to keep this value. So you keep this outliers because the Q test is actually smaller than the Q critical. So you just need to keep this value. So that's all for the discussion for your quiz 1. I hope you can understand this chapter well. So thank you very much for viewing this video. Give it a thumbs up and thank you very much.